So this session is called Human Resources, Community and Social Justice. We have Chanelle, Hannah, Lee, and Daisy who'll be taking part. But before they do so, and I give a little bit more of an introduction to them, I am an associate lecturer and a senior lecturer at the University of the Arts London. I'm the co-curator of Decolonising the Arts Curriculum Zines. But more important for this panel session, I'm the joint trade union branch secretary of the University and College Union at Central St. Martin's. And this is very, very important. And as we know, at the moment, one of the trade union leaders of the Train Drivers Union, Mick Lynch, said, class struggle is back, the working class is back, because at the moment, trade unions are at the forefront of the cost of living crisis, but a whole number of other things as well. And that is very, very important. They're also involved in taking part in making sure that we do something about the climate emergency as well. So as part of that, I want to, the discussion can center around how can we move towards a more just and equitable society. We should try and cover breadth of topics from social justice, climate change, burnout, class discrepancy, and access in higher education as well. So without any further ado, I would first like to invite Chanelle Windas, who is a graduate of BA Fine Art in 2022. And I'm really excited by her practice. And she's very, very clear. It's the working class. And so, Chanelle, if you would like to take the floor and explain a little bit more about your practice in terms of what you do. Yeah, you've set up a database as well, I hear.
Of course, thank you. So slide, please. I've got a little artist statement there to help out. I'm Chanelle. I was born in Hull, studied at CSM, graduated in 2022, and my own practice explores working class narrative from my first-hand experiences. I'd regard myself an interdisciplinary artist who has a complex relationship with the corporate art world, and so that makes me not want to participate in a lot of what uni taught me. I think the most pivotal art is one that engages marginalised communities in more discursive ways than just a free event. So thinking about access, childcare, buses and things like that. And also like desire to participate when free time is something that we struggle with. Most of my research revolves around the politics of the institution and how this limits working class narrative and how this space can be infiltrated in more progressive ways. I also co-direct the Working Class Creatives Database, which is now a community interest company alongside founder Seren Metcalf, who graduated from the Slade in 2021, I believe. And this is to basically give opportunity for working class creatives of all different stages in their careers, or whether it's just a hobby, to network, Skillshare, and connect with each other. Slide, please. So the artwork I have in exhibition at the minute goes through the importance of my own family narrative. Because when I was at CSM, I guess I struggled a little bit with like imposter syndrome. I didn't understand why. I didn't relate to a lot of my peers, and I didn't actually realise that it was such a prestigious university at first. So then my own practice went into exploring my own sort of childhood, and coming from so my granddad was from a travelling family and was a rag and bone man. And I was brought up with horses and ponies. Mum and dad have always had a 9 to 5 to try and keep food on the table for my 4 other siblings and myself. And yeah, Labour's been a massive element of growing up. And I was sent away at like the age of 12 to start work, and I've not stopped working since. So uni felt like a really weird break, and a bit like a holiday, but a holiday that I wasn't invited to. Slide, please. So yeah, the work in exhibition is titled The Weight of Love, and basically this goes on to explore the traveller heritage within my family. So all of my family had a collected effort to collect a load of copper, and then I've created a coin. So we have our own like family currency, and it's basically a little thing made of labour of our own family hands, and something that's just for us. So that's an exhibition alongside some family photographs at the minute. Slide, please. This is just a little bit of the process. So around the coin it says "for the love of labour" and "for the labour of love," and it's got inscribed a picture of my mum and dad that I took when I was about 6, of them having a cuddle in the kitchen. Slide, please. And this is just the process, the making process. Slide, please. So whilst I was at university, I sort of struggled with practicing inside the institution that still has to fight for workers' rights on the most basic of levels. So I lived at home for a while. It felt weird making work about a working class community and family narrative when it's in the institution that doesn't seem to support it. And I was getting a bit of like a conscience about actually not being a part of the community I was making work for anymore, and not being a part, like this sort of like detachment from my family as well. So yeah, we had to up and move house from in Hull, and that was 22 years of me living there and having all these memories in there. So proposed an exhibition inside to sort of celebrate our love and say our goodbyes. And it was an open invite to like all of the estate, thinking about like accessibility and also the community, because we were all quite close. But then it sort of made me look at my work from a different perspective of like, why am I trying to tick these boxes that aren't mine to tick? Like I don't have to open my experience to everybody, because actually it was a really personal exhibition, so I just left it open to the family. Slide, please. This is just a little bit of documentation for the exhibition invite and reflection on it. Slide, please. So the thing that I focus on mostly at the minute is a lot of bid writing, because currently Working Class Creators Database is not funded, and it relies on Seren and I doing a lot of work after my 9-to-5 job and after Seren's other job that pays, and also some help from the core group as well, who help with like comms and stuff like that. But basically the database exists to create a community, tackle classism, and provide a platform. And although that's very brief, basically what we do is we exist online and also in person, quite nomadically. We Skillshare, provide workshops, we provide residencies, we have a little WhatsApp group chat so people can communicate. And I think one of the most important and fruitful things that have come out of the database so far is a shared experience that unites us all, because obviously working classness is intersectional. So everyone has their own struggles like within that. Yeah, slide, please. This is just a little map to show you whereabouts a lot of people are, a lot of members are artist. Slide, please. Talked about that. Slide, please. Yeah, we also have free reading groups, and we have free crits as well that we run in person and online when we have the chance. So if anybody's interested, then do feel free to sign up. It's also free to sign up. Slides, please. And yeah, we basically we try and work with various other institutions or charities that sort of align with our morals. So there's always opportunity to exhibit for things that you stand for as well. Slide, please. And also, I always try and bring my work back to the community in Hull. So I did start a series of like free live drawing sessions in like free spaces to make live drawing more accessible as well. Slide, please. I feel like I've spoken forever. Oh, is that all? Yeah, cool. I think that's all from me.
Okay. Thank you so much, Chanelle. That was so fascinating, so important to state in relation to class as well, and also the interrelationship with a very, on the surface, I suppose inside as well, a middle class institution like Central St. Martin's, yeah, as well. So it's a good discussion I think we should have. I wonder also, you had some links as well to the working class database and some of the other things. So if you can post that in the chat as well, so people can connect with that, that'd be really, really useful. And we can come back, because I think you've raised a whole number of questions in relation to what you had said as well. So thank you, fantastic, and thanks. I'd like to move on now to, I think it's Lee, isn't it? Lee, we had you down for as a second speaker. So Lee is also a graduate of Central St. Martin's, and from MA Character Animation from 2022. She has a piece in the gallery space at the moment as well, and we're talking about burnout at this particular time. Yeah. So Lee, if you'd like to introduce yourself a little bit more, but welcome to this panel.
Thank you. So hi, I'm Lee Ricks. I'm a stop motion animator and model maker. This is a fairly recent thing that I've discovered on this course. I don't have any experience with animation beforehand. Beforehand, I was a fine arts bachelor's student and came onto the course with no animation experience whatsoever, and discovered stop motion, and it really had a sort of beautiful artistic quality that it really spoke to me. So my final film is called Burnout, and this should be a video to the trailer. Yeah. Next slide, please. Since Burnout is a stop motion film about a mechanical candle maker, every morning he wakes to do his work, and every night he winds up his key. Throughout the film, he is given larger tasks to complete and eventually has to decide between winding himself up or completing his work. He loves his craft and wishes to do well, but succumbs to the pressures of time and an outside force. Slide, please. This story essentially covers the consequences of neglecting self-care. The candle maker loves his work greatly, but that love takes up all of his energy and leaves none for himself. I believe there's a beautiful marriage between doing what we love and loving what we do, but one needs to remember themselves. One cannot pour from an empty cup. Slide, please. Film and art has a way of reaching hearts, communicating ideas, and making people understand a concept. Creativity can aid people to make them aware of the problems our modern society faces. It can stir the minds of the public to implement change to the benefit of many. Slide, please. I come from an American perspective and only have experience with this topic as a worker myself, having done customer service jobs up until now to survive. Burnout sits in that period of my life, feeling constantly tired and only getting more and more work for my ethic, eventually leading to days where I can't get out of bed. It also sits in the observation of people in the creative field, driven by their love and devotion to their craft, being run down and used up for it. Slide, please. Burnout hopefully serves the purpose to tell people to be cautious with themselves and to remind them that they are people and not machines. By being reminded, I hope they will stand up for themselves in the face of demanding hours, no matter how much they feel they can handle it. There is only so much a person can do, and only so far they can go before the key winds down. That's pretty much all I have to really say about burnout. Yeah, it sort of speaks for itself. The title speaks for itself. The key is definitely the strongest metaphor, and to speak of the energy that we have as people and what we can devote to, because every time I play with wind-up toys, I always notice how, you know, they totter along so happily, and then eventually they just get slower and slower and slower until they can't go anymore. And that's I sort of looked at it and I was like, that's kind of how I feel sometimes, and I feel like a lot of other people do as well. So I wanted to make a movie about it, essentially.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Lee, for that. It was fascinating. And we can come back to some of the question. And the question of burnout is so serious amongst working people at the moment, because we've been told we need to modernize, we need to be more flexible, but all it means is having to work and work and work. And so these are pertinent issues as well. And we can see that, you know, with what's taking place in the warehouse industry, and the new makeup as well. So it raises a lot of questions. So thank you very much for that. Before I introduce the next person, that's Daisy. I would encourage everyone who's joined us, and including the panelists themselves, to add questions to the chat as well. So that'd be really useful, because we can pick up on that as we're going along. Sometimes you kind of miss the question later on, and so it's important while they're speaking that to raise that issue. So let's move on to Daisy Pearson, a graduate of, again, Central St. Martin's, MA Graphic Communication, and her theme is intersectional environmentalism. So Daisy, introduce yourself a little bit more, and yeah, off with your, continue with the slides afterwards. Yeah.
Thanks, Rahul. Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks for having me. So yeah, my project is provocatively titled "Fuck Recycling, We Need a Revolution." My design practice is all about kind of communicating complexity. So I am an activist. I do environmental activism and so like global justice activism. And my master's in graphic communication design was all about how we communicate the real complexity of something like the climate crisis. Simplicity is often defended in graphic design as the only way to cut through the density of media vying for people's attention. But in persuading people that the climate crisis is a single issue with simple solutions, we fail to identify that the root causes of this crisis are a toxic mix of colonialism and capitalism. So "Fuck Recycling, We Need a Revolution" is a response to this tendency within graphic communication design to simplify and reduce. And it's a study of how designers and communicators can best portray the reality, complexity, and intersectionality of the climate crisis. We must go beyond encouraging people towards individual actions and instead ask, how do we communicate this complexity? How do we encourage deep engagement and participation with these issues through our communications? And how do we persuade people to join the mass movement for system change that the survival of our planet and our species depends on? So my work exists in two parts, a critique and a vision. Next slide, please, because you absolutely need both to go hand in hand. Part one, the critique, is a banner. Next slide, please. Called Who Owes Who? This is a provocation, an open-ended question that is inserted into public spaces in a variety of contexts that seeks to speak to different aspects of inequality, indebtedness, and transactional relationships in our day-to-day lives. Our global financial system is structured in a way where the global south, the sort of poor or undeveloped countries, as we often call them, owe huge amounts of debt to the global north, and it's characterized as, you know, well, we're very generous and we give them lots of money in the form of aid and charity every so often, and da, da, da. But Jason Hickel has actually shown in his research that for every $1 that flows from the global north to the global south, usually in terms of aid of some sort, $24 flows back from the global south to the global north, just through standard practices of trade and the ordinary workings of our global financial system. So who benefits and who loses out in this system, and who really owes who? On top of that, the modern debt system is fueling the climate crisis by locking us into cycles of extraction and exploitation in order to create continuous profits. The banner also seeks to speak to colonialism and slavery and the issue of reparations there. And the global south, on top of all of this, is now suffering from a climate crisis that they didn't create, that the global north created through the kind of capitalism and colonialism that did them the damage in the first place. So again, who owes who? Yeah, so the materials that I've used to make this banner, actually, you know what, I'll come back to that later. I'm sorry. The locations that I've put it in so far, this one is a photo of it in Central St. Martin's, where it's sought to speak to student debt, inequality of access to education, something that Chanelle's already talked about, inequality of experience once here, that kind of imposter syndrome she was talking about. And again, as Rahul has mentioned, it speaks to the ongoing strikes as staff protests against falling wages and increased instability and the challenges of lack of intersectionality within the university, conditions that are echoed right across every working sector in the country right now. Next slide, please. Hanging at the Peace Day of anti-war resistance in Brixton, where this photo was taken, it spoke to Brixton's long history as a site of Black immigration, community, resistance and resilience in the face of a global system that stacked against them, and again to the issues of colonialism and reparations. Next slide, please. Hanging on the Aylesbury estate near my house, set against Canary Wharf in the background, it visualizes the levels of extreme inequality that we've reached. The machines, the great machines of capitalism whirring in the background, generating these vast amounts of profit that only go to the elites, while the 99% have to fight tooth and nail for merely for adequate and affordable housing. Next slide, please. The materials of this banner, so it's made from Ghanaian print fabrics bought from fabric shops in Peckham near my house. The typeface is adapted from the Eva Perón women's suffrage protests in Argentina in 1957, and the backdrop is made from recycled bed sheets. All the costs of the materials and the fonts went to Black businesses or Black business owners, Black designers. So the banner tries to enact some of the values that I'm talking about here and offer some very small form of reparations in its creation. The final destination, or not the final, hopefully, the next destination for this banner, I've been asked to show it in the Toronto Design Festival, where I hope that it can speak to their own devastating legacies of colonialism and the brutal and systematic attempts to eradicate Indigenous culture there, which have seen catastrophic consequences for both the people and the land. Next slide, please. However, the critique must come with a vision. We also need to look forwards. We need to be constructive. We need to be hopeful. Part two, the vision, is called Co-Creating the Future. Next slide, please. Co-Creating the Future is an ongoing project about the collective imagining of a better future. I designed a workshop aimed at helping people overcome feelings of nihilism and apathy in relation to social change and the climate crisis, and empowering a critical narrative of hope and optimism in relation to these topics. Next slide, please. The next three slides are just kind of photos of some of the workshops that we did. Participants were given a range of manifestos and invited to cut bits out that spoke to them, and then as a group to collage these bits together into new collaborative manifestos. Next slide, please. They aim to challenge the demographics of who currently gets to shape the future and who feels empowered and entitled to have a vision for it. Next slide, please. And actually, we can skip to the next one as well. Thanks. These collaborative manifestos represent a collective and plural discourse of radical visions of possible futures. That's the end of my slide. As you can see, both of these projects are ongoing, and yeah, I hope that they continue alongside the activism that will continue to do as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Daisy. I just want to, very important, fascinating. If you get a chance, Daisy presented on a online session called Decolonising Decarbonisation with the Council of Art and Design, and she did a presentation in session 1. The banner was there as well. So if you get a chance, please come and listen to us on that. It's online. But also, much more important, if you don't know, that this Saturday, October the 1st, is a day of activism, as Daisy has said, and in the streets of London, Extinction Rebellion and Just Stop Oil will be mobilizing on the climate emergency. But added to that, there's a movement now started by trade unions called Enough is Enough, and they will be supporting protests across 7 cities across the UK. And if you don't know this, on Saturday is a national strike of railway and train drivers as well. I've seen the postering in Brixton. I live in Brixton, so I've seen the postering that's gone away. That's there. So don't pay emergency bills. Absolutely right, and that's what we've got to do. So without any further ado, Hannah's been waiting patiently. So welcome, Hannah. Hannah Karpel from BA Fashion Communication on the journalism pathway. She graduated in 2022, and it's about access to the art industry. And we know so much how that has been restricted, and class barriers are significant within that. So Hannah, to you, thank you.
Thank you so much for that introduction, and yeah, I found it really interesting listening to all the other panelists here and all of your projects and deep research. I think all of our
Oops, is it me or is it frozen? Jamie and Mia?
I think it might be frozen.
I'm
okay.
back. I'm back.
back.
I'm sorry. It seems to be dropping out every 5 minutes. So if I go, I'm coming back in the next 2 seconds. Sorry about that.
Yeah, Hannah, please start again. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Thank you.
So yeah, as you know, I'm from the BA Fashion Journalism course. When I started this project, it was the beginning of my final major project. It was announced that there were 50% cuts to art and design courses across higher education in the UK. So essentially, I thought about doing this as an article in response to that. But it kind of crossed over to my dissertation work as well, which looked at the correlation between class and uniform. And yeah, so I basically decided, you know what, the best way to communicate this is in a documentary. Coming from the journalism course, it's another way of telling that story and interviewing people and taking people on the journey with me, essentially, through the research. So as you can see here in the top right-hand corner, this is one of the schools that I visited, because when we're talking about the 50% cuts to art and design courses in higher education, it's also who's that going to affect, who's actually picking to do art and design courses at a higher education level. And since the English Baccalaureate was introduced in 2010 by the Education Secretary at the time, Michael Gove, if you don't know what the English Baccalaureate is, it's basically a school performance indicator that's linked to GCSEs. Since that was introduced in 2010, there's been a 30% reduction in the number of students at school who are picking to do art and humanities at an A level. And there's also been a 37% reduction in those who are picking to do those subjects at a GCSE level. But really key to those statistics is that it's only in state schools. So there's no change at all when it comes to the private schools. So even though I'm talking about the 50% cuts that are happening now at a higher education level, it's still not affecting around. If I dropped out of my back, I'm back.
Yeah. Continue where you left off. Yeah, 50% you said. Yeah.
Them. So this is what I wanted to do, and I wanted to go into schools and find out why they're not picking to do these subjects, what's going on. Obviously, it was coming fresh out of a 2-year lockdown where things haven't been, textile subjects, for example, haven't been happening online because you can't really feel and work on the sewing machines and have access to the equipment such as sewing machines when you're at home. So I went into schools and I spoke to these students. This picture here is at a state school in Luton. I basically mapped out the schools which have a high level of free school meals to visit. And through this project, which was part of the documentary, I partnered with Barbie UK. So they donated me a number of dolls, which were part of their new kind of diverse range of dolls, different sizes, skin tones. And I went into the schools to basically use these as mini models. And the students were involved in this competition where they had to design a look for the doll and essentially write about the look. So that's kind of encouraging them to do a little bit of fashion design, a little bit of fashion journalism. And whilst I was there, I discussed with them all of the different roles that are available in the fashion industry. I think there's this thing that's kind of going on in schools as well, where it's like career guidance that used to be separate and be from a separate company now happens in-house in schools. And it's sort of like teachers are good at teaching students how to become teachers, but they don't necessarily know all the different roles that are available in the arts. I mean, I've only just entered it and I don't know half of the jobs that are available in the arts. So just by going in there and explaining to them, introducing to them a few different people, whether that is a fashion agent or a stylist or a journalist, and getting them to have these kind of conversations about what's going on, it's kind of piquing their interest. And it did make me realise that there is a lack of knowledge about the opportunities that are available in the arts and the sense of no job security, no financial security. So it's kind of seen as the safer option to not pick an art subject. And especially when you do come from a low income household, it is obviously important, more important. Oh, back. That's where it started. But as I do go through the journey and kind of speak to schools and then go through and speak to freelancers, I spoke to Tori West, who's here, bottom right picture. She's the founder, editor-in-chief of Bricks magazine, which champion working class queer creatives, and they're a really incredible magazine, and they have a hub as well where they share a lot of opportunities. They offer out their photo space for a really low fee to encourage more people to be able to pursue their creative work if they don't have a lot of financial backing. But she talks about her side hustles and how she's not paid herself a salary in 7 years, and how she had to take up the role of a cleaner just to be able to kind of live this dream of having her own fashion magazine. And it's not easy pursuing a creative career when you don't have financial support behind you, but when you're truly passionate about something, it's like you want to do everything you can to do it, but the question is, how much do we actually need to sacrifice here? I spoke to freelancers as well to find out what the reality is for freelancers, especially when you first start out and you don't know your rights. And I've spoken to people who have waited over a year for an invoice to get paid. And this is just when many of us want to quit and say, you know what, I can't live like this. We're in a a living crisis, we've got rent to pay, and I need to know that I'm going to be getting this money monthly. You may have worked every day that month, but because you're on a freelance basis, the invoices aren't guaranteed to be coming in. But asking these questions and flagging these problems is one thing, but I wanted to find out, you know, on the flip side of that, actually, what are our rights as a freelancer? So I went to Somerset House and spoke to an arts lawyer who did explain sort of the basics. But I do think that this is stuff that needs to be taught in fashion college, in fashion school as well. We're all doing creative subjects here, but we need that level of business education so that we're
I think Hannah should be back soon. Yeah. Yes, she is.
or you've got or if you've got lawyers in the family, then you can just ask your uncle, oh, what do I do here? What do I need to put on my invoice to make sure that they pay me? Or, you know, what do I have to take them to the small claims court? You can ask somebody. But this kind of information isn't as accessible for people that don't have the connections in the family, which is why I think it's really important that we're transparent about these things from early on in our career. And then in the bottom left corner here, you can see this is me kind of talking in the documentary outside the Houses of Parliament, where I met with Sharon Hodgson MP, who's the chair of the all-party political group for art, craft and design in education. So that consists of MPs from all parties, where they sit and discuss this. But she shared some interesting information about why the arts is important for all, not just for, you know, those people that want to pursue creative careers. She talked about surgeons who are going through medical school, and they may be years into their career of study in medicine, yet they're being sent home to go and learn how to sew, to sew a heart. And it's this sort of idea that, you know, it benefits everybody having a creative education from a young age, no matter what kind of direction you're going to go in. But the thing is, there is a lot that needs to be done. I asked her about the 50% cuts to art and design courses in higher education, just to flag this doesn't affect UAL, it doesn't affect the Royal College of Arts. They were in fact getting more money. It's more the colleges that are around the UK in the north, the smaller colleges. But these are the type of areas that we actually need to be lifting up more, because it is difficult to move to London if you're coming from a lower socioeconomic background as well. We're very much creating a type of world where this is where you need to be successful. And if you can't afford it, then sorry, you can't do it. There are amazing charities like Arts Emergency, who I speak to in the
I think we've lost Hannah, but I'm just going to give a time check. We've got about, oh, sorry.
Sorry.
I'm just coming in with a bit of a time check, just because we've got about 15 minutes to have a conversation with all of you. Okay. So do you want to finish what you were saying, and we can maybe move on to a chat?
Yes, yeah, of course. I just was going off. We can go on to the next slide, because that's pretty much everything that I wanted to say. These are basically some pull quotes from interviews that I did in the documentary. Tori was at the bottom there. I wanted to build a company where you don't feel like your ethics or your identity is ever going to be compromised. So yeah, and then if you just go on to the next slides, I can show you some of the Barbie dolls that the students who are 14 and 15 years old created. So yeah, that's me, and that's the documentary, and the trailer's online if anybody would like to watch it, or I can send you a link as well. Just message me. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Hannah. Sorry about the kind of interruptions that you had, but I think you got most of your points across as well. So thank you for that. And any of our panelists have got links that you'd like to post, please post them in chat as well. So could you, if I can, I'm looking at the time as well. So are there questions from those people who have joined us as well? That'd be useful. If you can add in chat or also take to the mic, that'd be great. Yeah. So any questions for Chanelle, Lee, Daisy, or Hannah? That'd be really, really good. I mean, there are, this discussion has brought into frame so many points that we just don't get a chance to discuss in terms of mainstream media. They simply do not come up. There's accepted, the class is there to stay, and that's where it ought to be. We need to be thinking about how we break those barriers. So can I just kind of leave it for people to contribute to that? Melody, I see you trying. You want to put some points in there. Do you want to take the chat? Might be easier.
So Rahul, we've got a question.
Yeah, please do.
Which is for Hannah. And Melody asks, I'm wondering how you partnered with Barbie and how you found it beneficial to work with a corporation.
Thank you so much for your question. So, you know what, I actually originally had the idea to just go to car boot sales and get as many secondhand dolls as I could, but they were all just, white Barbie dolls with blonde hair, and I don't want to go into schools with young children and give them this type of doll. I kind of wanted just a plain wooden mannequin, but when I saw that Barbie had brought out these new dolls, I thought I'd reach out to them, and I'd put a pitch deck together, sent it across to them, and we had some back and forths. I explained to them what I wanted to do, what my mission was, and they were very, very forthcoming in that they literally sent boxes to my front door and didn't ask for anything in return. So I feel very lucky that I was able to do that project with the schools, because although they are a big corporation, I feel like it helped me get into the schools because I could say that I was working with them. So as much as they are kind of this corporation, they helped me a lot, and yeah, I thank them for being able to help me, to be honest. So yeah, I would say if you're wanting to do it, put a pitch deck together and reach out, because you just never know. You might as well try it,
Okay. Yeah. Are there any more kind of questions forthcoming from people who joined us? And that. While we're kind of waiting, I wanted to ask Chanelle about your database. What's the take up on the database? I saw, we saw the people across the country responding to that, but what's been the take up? That'd be useful, Chanelle, if it's possible to comment on that. That's Mike. Yeah. Okay.
Sorry. Also, like, darkness has surrounded me now. Do you mean the take up as in how many people are accessing it, or
yes.
how it's okay? So we have over. So we are open to like global members from around the globe, but we have over 400 members already. A lot of them are from the UK, because it's like we aren't funded to marketing and events and stuff. Have mainly been in the UK. There's a lot like the WhatsApp group chats are always popping off, and people are always wanting to do events like based around the like class discussion and activism regarding that. It's where like, well, I finish work at 5, and I usually don't start working on things until like 9 on the night, whether that be like just responding to people via Instagram or like emails. But yeah, what we're trying to do is, as of January, have a year program around the region in low engagement areas, and basically to showcase members and offer talks with the community that we're involved with. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for that. I was hoping for some questions, but they haven't come yet. So, but let me. I'm going in an order, but can I ask, Lee, about burnout? Yeah. Okay. But Daisy, you had a question as well. Yeah.
Yeah, my question was actually going to be to Lee about burnout anyway, if that's okay.
Okay.
Okay, hi.
Hi. I absolutely loved your animation. I thought it was gorgeous.
Thank you.
And also devastating. And it feels to me, I mean, I'm coming at this from my own particularly activist lens, but I guess I wondered if you felt like your piece said anything explicitly about capitalism. For me, it feels like it shows the kind of embodiedness of capitalism and that kind of constant labor, constant production to the point where we burn ourselves out. And I've heard some really interesting people talking about, reframing the way that we think about time spent versus maybe like time given. Time is something that we can choose to give to people and things that we're interested in. And yeah, there's a whole load of questions in there. You can choose to answer it how you want, but maybe do you think your piece says anything about time and the way that you might want to reconfigure the way that we view time as a resource?
I mostly made burnout, I confess, as like sort of an emotional side of things, and the way that being in a sort of capitalistic hellscape like America, it's sort of how it sits in the heart and how it sits in the mind, and how it drags you down. And even if you're doing something that you really, really care about, you still almost get punished for how much you love it. And that was something that I sort of thought about a lot, but it does have like a considerable bit to do with capitalism, because he's doing this all by himself, and he's, giving everything that he's got, and he's still piled on more and more and more, and he's essentially drugged down by how much he cares. And it's sort of a shame in that way that, like, especially coming from like a personal perspective, like I consider myself a hard worker, and I've worked retail jobs and I very much enjoy doing them. But it seemed that the better I performed and the more I gave, the more they expected from me, to a point where it was taking more than I had. And that's kind of where burnout sits as far as like that frame.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that, Lee, as well. We as lecturers can relate to that quite a lot, because the majority of the lecturers at University of the Arts London, but across higher education, are hourly paid lecturers, right? We don't have secure contracts, and there is a huge level of burnout amongst staff as well, because we are constantly being told to take on, and the student numbers are increasing, and just told take it on. Yeah, so the burnout issue is quite important. I wanted to make a proposal towards the end as well for all four of you, because it was a fascinating panel discussion. But Daisy, let me come to you, which is, you said revolution. What do we mean by revolution? It's a big topic, but it, kind of succinct, because I know you said recycling, right? And so revolution in what sense,
Yeah, the big question. Thanks.
Yeah. Sorry to learn that.
That's okay. I think I'm talking about, we need to be talking about system change. We need to be looking for the root causes of the crises that we find ourselves in. And that's a journey that I think I've been on for the last few years, as kind of since I really got heavily involved in activism. I've been trying to kind of go, well, yeah, what's all of this stuff is great, like even stuff like green technology, it's important, but it's not by itself getting to the cause of it. So I feel like I've been trying to go back and back and back to the start of it, and then to try to sort of unpick these deep flaws in our kind of global systems, and predominantly I think I'm talking about economic systems there, because they are the biggest forces in the world. But obviously there's capitalism and colonialism go hand in hand, so there are other kind of structures of control and oppression there that I think that we need to unpick alongside the capitalist economy in order to. So yeah, I'm talking about a revolution where we build an economy that works for everybody, that puts things like care and justice and fairness and equity right at the heart. And those are the values by which we structure everything else, which would be a huge revolution.
And it's important at the moment because, you know, the cost of living crisis is not just the cost of living crisis. It is being created by the fossil fuel industry, isn't it? Simply put in that, a reassertion of their power in terms of saying, we're raising prices, we're doing this, and we're going to conduct war as a result of that as well. And you have to pay for it. So it is important to, yeah.
And I'll just add to that, yeah, it's been conducted by the big fossil fuel companies, but also by big finance who are, you know, speculating and essentially betting on the very kind of basic commodities that we need to survive, like food and energy, in order to create profits. And that's what's driving prices up for everybody else and creating the cost of living crisis.
Okay, thank you. Hannah, I'll come back to you, okay, but there's a question Jamie has posed as well. This is an open question for everyone. What do you reckon we as artists and academics can do now to work towards a more equitable working environment as well? And we have a hand up as well. Anthony, sorry, apologies. Would you like to take to the mic, Anthony? Yeah.
Sorry. No apology necessary. I mostly wanted to say thank you to everyone. I walked around the exhibition today, and somehow I think if I'd picked out 4 pieces, it probably would have been the 4 of you, not knowing who was going to be on this chat, particularly Lee's amazing animation, which I agree was kind of really tough to watch as well as quite amazing, but a lot of research. Incredible research, but also put into incredible creative products. The question I was thinking of was about particularly Chanelle talking about coming into an institution that brands itself as something which is quite elite, which is obviously pitching at a kind of art world which is elite and has a kind of particular relationship to power through money and all this kind of investment that UAL gets from powerful places and from big money places, and how that makes you feel an outsider perhaps when you get into it. And certainly that applies to UAL staff, it applies to staff as well. I guess, and anyone can answer this, but how do you think, or how do you feel as a graduate the institution is kind of treading that line between the elite and the thing that wants to sell itself as having a kind of social purpose and a greater purpose in society that's transformative? And does that make sense to you, and possibly what could be done differently?
Thank you, Anthony, for that. And if I can just seek we'll seek replies to that. But can I just seek permission from Mia and Jamie? I'm looking at only having 1 minute. Are we allowed to extend it for a couple of minutes? Are we in a position to do that? Because it was an important question Anthony posed as well.
I think it's a wonderful question, and I'd love to hear it answered.
Okay, good. So we continue, yeah, past the half an hour. Who would like to take this up? Chanelle, Hannah, Lee, Daisy? Yeah, Hannah, go.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in and mention about, as a recent graduate, I think I've actually found to have met within the institution some really genuine people that have offered some really, really good support, particularly the UAL employability team, really helpful. Even, for example, this exhibition in itself and giving us a platform to be able to do this is hugely important, and it does kind of balance against the kind of view of the kind of institution as a whole, and there is kind of this difference, is what I would say, between the individuals who are helping individuals, which is super genuine and really helpful, but then this kind of idea of being put out there, public facing, and the actual curriculum, which I think kind of lacks a few things that actually do help us within our course for the working world.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for Hannah. Chanelle, you had your hand up. Sorry, I missed it. Yeah, so Chanelle.
That's okay. Thank you. First of all, I think there should be more clarity on like who supports and funds the institution before we go to it, especially like that I didn't know it was as prestigious as it is, or what the institution sends the money towards, and also like the insecure contracts of workers there. And also I think we need to, like, I agree with what Hannah said in that like some of the people and opportunities that I've had like within there have been really beneficial, and obviously it has given me more networks than I'd have got staying in Hull, even Hull University, never mind just staying on like the estate I'm from. But I think we need to look at that and realise that it's the people inside the institution that make the brand, not the brand. Like the brand doesn't exist for itself, it's those that are inside it working together. So I think like Daisy said earlier as well, like community care is the most important. Yeah, there's activism in numbers.
Okay, thank you for that. Daisy or Lee, do you want to come back on that question? Lee?
Yeah, actually, it sort of rotates back to what you said, Rahul, about the staff having to suffer burnout because of the expanding course and not being accommodated for that. That actually sort of strikes something that I was speaking to one of my former professors today about the fact that our course has been expanded for year one from around 30 people to 50, and the staff hasn't been accommodated for that. There's a small space and we haven't gotten the equipment that they need, and they haven't gotten the space that they need, but they got more students, and it's already a small space as it is, and there's already limited resources as it is, and it sort of drags everything behind it, and that creates a sort of frustration and burnout for everyone involved. I think even the students, to suffer through not having what they need to be able to go through their education. Like with stop motion, with the lockdown, there was a period where we needed supplies to be able to build these things wherever we lived, and we couldn't get access to that through the university, and they had said no. And so there was a good like 15 people, which is a considerable amount for our course, that were interested in stop motion, but then quickly dropped out when lockdown hit because they couldn't afford to have the supplies on hand to make the puppets. And so it's essentially boiled down to me out of 30 people in my year. And I also watched one of my professors like completely burn out, like every single drop of oil that he had in the lamp. Like, it was very heartbreaking to see that, and making my film at the same time, it was sort of something that was in my mind. And so that's something that I think the university should think about, is that yes, having more students at the school is great and giving them that sort of UAL stamp that everybody wants, but I think that they should be more considerate of everyone involved, that being the students and the faculty. And I think that's something that's important moving ahead.
Thank you for that, Lee. Daisy, if you can have a final say, and Anthony, if you'd like to come back, if not, Daisy, would you like to add to that?
Sure, yeah. I actually had a really interesting conversation with David Cross about this, obviously your colleague. And I think that for me, there's this kind of like, there's a double think that goes on within particularly arts universities, where I think they are quite innately left-wing progressive spaces. I feel blessed that like most of my tutors feel very kind of progressive and aligned with my politics, and encourage us to kind of do sort of social justice or like these kind of personal projects. And yet everything that we've just talked about is also true. The burnout, the overwork, and there is this discrepancy. And, you know, the fact that the strikes were going on throughout my entire time there and are still going on because the tutors are kind of going, yeah, we teach these courses and we want to kind of push forward these values, but oh my God, we're struggling. And then particularly at kind of BA level, like you get pushed towards certain sort of prizes and awards that are, and like I was nominated for an environmental award called like Maison Zero Green Trail or something, and it's funded by this big like luxury brand and I was just like, again, the disjuncture of like, they obviously want to celebrate all of this stuff, but also the money and the values that are there. And I think that I think the double think is dangerous. I think we internalize this juxtaposition that we then take out into the world with us without ever fully sort of reckoning with that. So yeah, scary.
So, thank you for that, Daisy. I'd also like to add something on there, because it's not been the institution's good heart that this has come about. It's come about because of actually both students and staff pushing for this. So just on the climate emergency, there was a movement. That movement came from outside. It was Extinction Rebellion, and it had an effect where staff mobilized, and they had a climate emergency forum where we had several hundred people there saying, we now need to make a change. And the university had to respond to that. And in relation to anti-racism, it's interesting that you know, for UAL, they made out that they were ahead in terms of anti-racism, and there was a call out to them to say, no, you're not. When Black Lives Matter happened, students put forward a petition, and 10,900 people signed the petition. And at that stage, finally, the university said, we will put into action an anti-racist action plan. But like anything, and this is the contradictory thing, you are challenging the institutional racism, institutional drive towards carbonization, but within the institution, you have institutional anti-racism, and you have the institution deciding how far it would take the issue of the climate emergency. And that's what we're kind of grappling with as well. And this final point I'd like to make, I mean, for those of you who don't know, but at Central St. Martin's, we have a lecture hall called Louis Vuitton Monthenessy, right? It's we know the company. And previously, when I first came at Central St. Martin's, the lecture hall was called E002, E003. But LVMH gave 6 million quid and to the university, and therefore branding took place of that place. But we also believe how the curriculum functioned, and this is what was brought up by, I think, the panelist, also changed. The question was whose priority then it became, how it became embodied, whose if you like to call it student partnership became priority in relation to that. So it is a contradiction, but we have to go past these kind of contradictions in relation to that. Yeah. So I'm looking at time. We're moving into 38 minutes past. We're supposed to finish at 30. I just want to finish on this. I thought your introduction, the 4 introductions that you had were fantastic, but I don't think we can leave it at that. Right, because I think if we can, we should have a roadshow across the university, because I think there is a desperate need to understand what you've been talking about. I think both staff and students will really welcome that. So that's a proposal. It's for you and the organisers to think about it, and we just can't leave it as that, because this is important creative stuff that you brought out, and we all need to be part of it. Yeah. If that helps. Is there any more, finally, is there any more, Jamie and Mia, that am I extending it too long?
I think we might need to start wrapping up. Okay. But a huge thank you to you all. This has been a wonderful conversation. Oh, there might be someone in the chat. If there is a question, this can be our final one. The suspense.
Yeah.
Just while we're on tenterhooks here as well, I'll take the opportunity to, I'll answer the question as well, actually. So I never actually introduced myself properly at the beginning. Hi, I'm Jamie. I work with Mia at the Lethaby Gallery. I just want to take the opportunity to say thank you guys as well for all of this. This has been a really thrilling, interesting chat, and I'm very pleased that we managed to get it going. And thank you all to all the guests who have come here. Regards to Melody's suspense and the following question, we are planning for this talk to be available online afterwards. We'll be talking with UAL's media team tomorrow to see when this can be put online somewhere, be it YouTube or some other kind of form. anything else apart from that, we will keep everyone in the loop and updated. Yeah, thank you again.
Thank you. Mia, did you want to add something? You're typing. Why don't you take to the mic anyway? Yeah. We'll be hopefully uploading at CSM YouTube. Okay, so thank you again, Chanelle, Lee, Hannah, Daisy, and Jamie and Mia for organising this. It was a fantastic hour and a bit longer, and you raised some really pertinent and important question. I think in the common sense, the working class is back. We've been written out of history, but we are here. And that action is taking place on the streets of the UK this particular Saturday and October the 5th as well. So yeah, the voice needs to be made loud and clear. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining in.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. Really fantastic.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Right.